Good day, everyone. I am Jolan Tangalon, and today I'm going to discuss creative nonfiction. Creative nonfiction is a genre of writing that uses elements of creative writing to present a factual, true story. Literary techniques that are usually reserved for writing fiction can be used in creative nonfiction, such as dialogue, sunsetting, and narrative structure. It is a genre that blends factual storytelling with creative writing techniques like dialogue, vivid descriptions, and narrative structure typically used in fiction. This style makes true stories more engaging while staying rooted in facts. Creative nonfiction encompasses various nonfiction genres such as memoir, biography, autobiography, literary journalism, travel writing, nature writing, sports writing, personal essay, and interviews. So these genres use creative techniques to convey real-life stories and experiences in a compelling literary way. In creative nonfiction, certain characteristics distinguish it from other genres. So first is facts. The foundation of creative nonfiction is truth. Everything presented must be factual, with no embellishments or fictional additions. Next is research. Writer must conduct in-depth research using sources such as interviews, historical records, or articles to ensure accuracy and depth in their writing. Next is reporting. Creative nonfiction often involves documenting real life events or experiences based on research, providing a truthful account. Next is personal insight. Unlike traditional journalism, creative nonfiction may include the author's own reflections, emotions, or opinions, adding a personal touch to the story. Next is explanation. The writing should clearly explain the topic, offering insight and making the subject matter understandable to the readers. So there are key elements of creative nonfiction. So first is setting. So this is a time and place where the story unfolds. It provides context in the backdrop, grounding the narrative in a specific location and time period. Next is descriptive imagery. This technique involves vividly describing scenes or images to create a strong mental picture to the reader. It appeals to the senses like sight, sound, smell, touch, and taste to bring the narrative to life. Next is plot. The plot encompasses the series of events within the story. It involves the main actions and developments that drive the narrative forward, including the sequence in which they occur and pacing of these events. Next is scope. Scope defines the extent and focus of the plot. It determines where and when the story begins and ends. Its main focus and what background information or details are necessary to fully understand the narrative. Next is sequence. Sequence refers to the order in which the events occur in the narrative. A well throughout sequence guides the reader through the plot in a coherent and engaging manner. Next is non-linear narrative. This approach involves telling the story out of chronological order, often through flashbacks, vignettes, or jumps in time. It can create a certain mood to reflect the complexity of experiences. Next is pacing. Pacing controls the speed in which the narrative unfolds. It determines how much time and details are devoted to each event, impacting the overall rhythm and flow of the story. Next is characters. Characters are essential as they drive the narrative and engage readers. They can be real people or personas representing different viewpoints and experiences within the story. Next is point of view. This is the perspective from which the story is told. It influences the reader's understanding and engagement, shaping the language used, the insights provided, and the overall narrative structure. So there are some examples of creative nonfiction. It includes When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Calanity, Corkdirk by Bianca Bosker, and Into the Wild by John Crocqua. So let's discuss this one by one. So first is When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Calanity. This memoir tells the story of Calamity, a 36 years old neurosurgeon diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer at the peak of his career. Faced with his impending death, he reflects on the deep philosophical questions of what makes life meaningful and virtuous, balancing his roles as a doctor, husband, and father to a young child. Calamity shares the emotional and physical struggles he and his family endure. His narrative offers both insight and inspiration, demonstrating how one can find purpose and meaning even life's most difficult moments. Next is Cork Dark by Bianca Bosker. This book explores the world of wine as the author goes from casual wine drinker to a dedicated sommelier in training. Through wine tasting, visit to restaurants and wine factories, she uncovers the science, history, and fashion behind wine. Along the way, she meets sommeliers and wine lovers, sharing discoveries in a fun and engaging way, making readers curious about becoming cork dorks themselves. And lastly, Into the Wild by John Crackwer. So this book tells the tragic and compelling true stories of Christopher McCandless, a young man who, after graduating from college, abandoned his comfortable life. He donated his savings to charity, cut ties with his families, and set off on a journey across the U.S., eventually venturing into the Alaskan wilderness. 4 months later, his body was discovered by a hunter. Cracker investigates what drove McCandless to seek isolation and risk his life in the wild, drawing from journal entries, interviews, and his own wilderness experiences. Through vivid storytelling, Cracker examines themes of freedom, adventures, and the human desire to find deeper meaning in life. So let's go now to some tips for writing creative nonfiction. So first is take great notes. Always carry a notebook or journal to jot down key details, conversations, or moments as they happen. Capturing these raw insights will help create a vivid, authentic scenes later in your writing. Next is practice observation. Train yourself to observe the world around you closely. Pay attention to small details like body language, environment, and sounds as they enrich your story and make it more immersive. Next is accuracy first. Prioritize truthfulness when recounting events or describing people. While you can use literary techniques to make the narrative engaging, maintaining accuracy ensures credibility and trust with your readers. Next is use prompts. Incorporate creative writing prompts to overcome writer's block or generate fresh ideas. These prompts can help you reflect on personal experiences or explore different angles in your nonfiction writing. So, in summary, creative nonfiction is a dynamic and versatile genre that merge the truthfulness of factual storytelling with the engaging techniques by literary writings. By exploring elements such as setting, plot, and characters development, it creates compelling narratives that both inform and inspire. Whether through memoirs, biographies, or literary journalism, creative nonfiction offers readers a rich blend of insight, emotions, and reality. By mastering the characteristics of accuracy, observation, and personal reflection, writers in a generation can craft stories that not only conveys facts but also leaves a lasting impact to the audience. And that will be all po. I hope that you learned something. Thank you and God bless.